goes up, 2, 3, 4, occupation GI Blue.
Greetings, Elvis fans from Rare Elvis Photos. Elvis was a soldier. He was a citizen of the United States, and I wanted to honor him with this video. And I'm also going to read the acknowledgement of service obligation, where he says, I, Elvis Aaron Presley, having been inducted into the Armed Forces of the United States on this 24th day of March 1958 for 2 years of active duty, acknowledge that I have been informed of my service obligation. I understand that upon completion of my term of active duty, I will, if qualified, be transferred to the reserve and required to serve for an additional period when added to my active duty service that totals 6 years, unless sooner discharged in accordance with standards prescribed by the U.S. Secretary of Defense, that I will be required to serve a period of ready reserve watch, then added to my active duty service total of 5 years, that I may then, upon written request, be transferred to the standby reserve for the remainder of my obligated period of service. I further understand that during my service as a member of the Ready Reserve, I will be required to attend not less than as scheduled drills and training periods, and not more than 17 days of active duty for training, actually, or that in lieu of thereof, when authorized, I may be required to perform 30 days of active duty for training annually. The failure to perform required training in any year can result in being ordered to perform additional active duty training for 45 days, and in having in services ready to reserve. I couldn't really read that part of it, but Elvis Presley, US-53310761. He was E1, private E1, Elvis Aaron Presley. So, of course, he signed that in the beginning, and we all know that he did get relieved of that duty of the additional time. He served his time well. He was a model soldier. He took care of his fellow soldiers in the Army, donated his check basically to them. Elvis made plenty of money. He didn't need the Army's pay. And in all honesty, he didn't really need to go into the Army. He really could have gone into the Special Services, and he would have had an easier life. He would have been able to perform. He would have cut more records, more movies. And I think, do I think whether he would have been even a bigger star? It's possible. He's got memorials over there in Germany, the Elvis Presley Circle in Friedberg, the Elvis Presley Memorial in Bad Nauheim. And I may not be pronouncing that right because it's probably Noam or something like that. The Elvis Presley Memorial in Obermorlen, and the Elvis Presley Memorial in Schlicht. Some of the awards that he won was the Good Conduct Medal, the Good Conduct Medal, and the National Defense Service Medal. Now, the unit that he was in was the Headquarters Company, 1st Medium Tank Battalion. I'm having problems talking today, folks. Sorry about that. 32nd Armor, 3rd Armor Division. There's Elvis playing some softball with Red and his buddies. Some of my favorite photos there. I just really dig the fact that he's just got to be a normal person. He as much as he could be. Before he entered the Army, he'd caused kind of a national outrage. Nothing of his doing, but their parents and religious leaders and teachers groups that welcomed him to be drafted in the military because they thought, we're going to get rid of Elvis. That being said, Elvis sure showed them wrong. Not only did he serve his duty over there, he lost his mother in a sense because of him being drafted into the Army. She pretty much, she had acute hepatitis and she had a heart attack and she had cirrhosis. So it's a shame on that part. But it definitely formed and molded Elvis. And when he got out of the Army, he was actually, in my opinion, he became a bigger star. Because not only did he still have his fans from prior to entering the Army, but he gained the respect of the world. Not just the country, but the world. Elvis Presley, the world's... You wouldn't catch the Beatles doing that. The Beatles weren't going to be drafted in any service. They were going to go ahead and I don't want to talk down about the Beatles, but there was a reason why Elvis felt a certain way towards John Lennon. Elvis was patriotic. Elvis loved this country. Part of what's missing from this country nowadays is the love for this country. And Elvis Presley, he was political. Where would he be standing today? He wouldn't be, in my opinion. I'm probably going to back out of that conversation and just stand with the idea that Elvis loved this country, and um, and that he cared about it, and he cared that the youth of America should love the country, and that's how he was back in the days, and so when he went in the army, of course, that really made him a role model, I should say. And that's something the Beatles didn't accomplish. And that's why Elvis Presley just felt like the Beatles were bad for American culture because they didn't respect America. Anyhow, he on January 4th of 1957, Elvis attended the Kennedy Veterans Hospital in Memphis for pre-induction Army medical. Then on January 8th, his 22nd birthday, he was declared 1A by the draft board in Memphis. Physically fit and likely to be drafted sometime over the next month. So he obviously went down to Texas. He trained. He went to Germany, and he served over there. We all know he met Priscilla over there, and and he, Elizabeth Stefaniak, who was also Elizabeth Mansfield, Rex Mansfield's wife. Was Elvis's girlfriend over there the whole time for the most part, secretary girlfriend for the majority of it, and she's got sweet stories to tell about Elvis, and Rex wrote a book, but Elvis was a model soldier. He did better than you can expect for somebody to have been given it all and then snatched away, and he served admirably in defense of this country. I mean, if war would have broke out, Elvis would have been fighting. And thankfully that did not occur. That being said, I know that he understood the sacrifice of the soldiers that went to Vietnam, that passed away. There's that story of Elvis Presley on the way to meet Nixon, meeting the soldier returning home on a plane, and the money he had just gotten, Jerry Schilling had just got for him, he literally gave it all away to the soldier because he loved this country. He loved the military. He loved the sacrifice that everybody before him had, he just loved that sacrifice, because without that, America would not be America. Freedom would not be freedom, And so when you think about Elvis, if you're a new fan, I really want you to understand that even though Elvis was a rock and roller, he was a crooner, he was an actor, he was a live performer, he was an American. He was an American, and he believed in America, and we really are lacking that nowadays, that we don't really have the gratitude. I know personally, I go to sleep every night, being thankful, thanking God for the comfortable bed that I'm in, for the temperature-controlled room that I'm sleeping in, for the opportunities that I have. Even if things are not going very well, there's still opportunity for us Americans to continue to make do, to continue to survive in a way that's better than 99% of the other world that's out there. And Elvis was grateful. He was full of gratitude, which is why it showed in his generosity. He didn't give stuff away to friends, families, and strangers, in my opinion, and in most people's opinion, to be a big shot. He did it because he was grateful for what he had, and he wanted others to feel what he had. He didn't want to bear it alone. He didn't want to have everything himself. He wanted everybody to have a piece of what he had. Even though they weren't the ones that achieved it. He achieved it. His talent achieved it. His skill achieved it. His hard work, his effort achieved it. Achieved it. His sacrifices going into the army achieved it. It was a life and a career of Elvis that spanned about 22 years, from 55, 54 to 77, 22, 23 years. That even though it was only 22 to 23 years, he lived 100 years in that span. I say that all the time in videos. And I think that's what I want you all to take away from this video. If you've watched it this far, if you didn't know as much about Elvis and his military career, sleeping in the fields in the cold, freezing, out for weeks at a time, now you do. And now you kind of know Elvis's stance on America. And hopefully you take that forward. You know, tell your kids, tell your brothers, tell your sisters, tell your friends, you know, to love America, to appreciate what we got here. And that's, you know, that's what's going on nowadays in the political landscape. I mean, I know politics are always going to be politics, but, you know, I've seen it myself where America's not, we don't appreciate America as much. And some of the freedoms are being taken away, and some of the freedoms are maybe too much, you know, but that's kind of been America. Um, Anyways, TCB TLC, love you guys so much. You know, you wonderful ladies, wonderful gentlemen out there, new fans. I love Elvis Presley. Keep sharing this video, liking, subscribing. Hit the join button if you would. TCB TLC.